welcome back again to another episode of Doodling Through Education. Today we have a science episode, and I wanted to say this: if you are a CC student, this is week 19 science memory work that we are supplementing and expanding on. And so in this episode, we're going to be talking about the first law of thermodynamics. And so as with our other episodes, we're going to talk about what it is, and then we're going to go through some examples of it. And we're even going to touch on a little history of who discovered this law first. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and start doodling. So, what is the first law of thermodynamics? This law states that energy cannot be created or destroyed. Really, this is a very interesting concept, because if energy cannot be created or destroyed, then the energy in the whole of the universe, all of God's creation, at any given time remains the same. So, energy cannot be created or destroyed, but it can be changed from one phase into another. And really, this is a good and important thing because it makes life possible. For example, the energy in a system can be converted to heat or work, but you always have the same total that you started with. So when you eat food, this is adding potential energy to your body that you then can exert when you do work. Before we jump into some more examples of this, let's talk a little about the history of this law and who developed it. The first law of thermodynamics is believed to have been developed almost simultaneously by Julius Robert Mayer and James Prescott Joule in the 1840s. However, James Watt had a clear vision of energy conversion and conservation. And you may remember James Watt's name because we just talked about him when we talked about the Industrial Revolution. In his 1769 patent, he laid down the foundations for the first law of thermodynamics, which was published in 1774. Although Watt did not use ordinary language to express his thoughts, but rather drawings that visualized his ideas. It was using this understanding of the first law of thermodynamics where he invented the technology of the steam engine, which we talked about in the Week 13 History Doodling video. So let's look at this idea further. Let's imagine that you have a bunch of colorful blocks. You could use your blocks to build a large house for your action figure to live in. Or you could use your blocks to build a piece of furniture, a chair perhaps, for your toy clown. Or maybe you would use your blocks to make a car for your teddy bear. No matter how you used the blocks, you would still have the same number of blocks, even if you lost a block in your sister's room or your friend borrowed some of them. There would still be the same number of blocks. Energy might move around or be used in different ways, but you can never create more energy or destroy energy. There will always be the same amount of energy in the universe. And this just makes me think about how God is such an awesome God to make our universe like this. Now, let's look at some examples of this law. An ice cube melting on the table or floor is a perfect example of the first law of thermodynamics. When you leave an ice cube out in the open, you will notice it melting and converting to water in just a few minutes. This phenomenon happens because the ice absorbs the heat from the surrounding air, thereby cooling the air and changing the ice to water. In this example, the absorption of heat causes a change in the state of the ice. Another example of this is how plants get energy through a process called photosynthesis. The plant absorbs the solar energy from the sun before converting the solar energy into chemical energy. Not only does this process nourish the plants, but it also produces oxygen, which is essential for our survival. And our last example for today can be that of a person picking up a large box. The energy in this person's muscles help to bring the box off the ground. But where does the energy go after it has been picked up? Well, some of it is transferred to heat energy and released from the person's body into the greater system of our world. And some energy is also then stored in potential energy, which we talked about in the week 15 science doodling video. And this potential energy will be expended when the box is dropped or brought down. And that's all we have today. Think about this law, talk it over with your parents, try and think of your own examples, and maybe even do some of your own experiments on the first law of thermodynamics this week. And on that note, remember to be kind, follow God's will, and take care. Bye.